as you do that, and as Ashish mentioned, we do have a very exciting day planned for you today. And we will be kicking off eTailing India Expo with our keynote session. We have three incredible speakers who are all leaders in their field. Our first keynote address will be given by Mr. Harish Bahl, the founder and chairman of Smile Group. A bit about Mr. Bahl: he is a globally recognized thought leader and spokesperson for the internet and digital world. He is a serial entrepreneur who has successfully founded some of the leading e-commerce and digital media companies in India and other emerging markets. Now, these companies are incubated in the space of travel, healthcare, e-commerce, digital marketing, and more. He has negotiated several joint ventures with global giants like WPP, Yahoo, Global Shopping Alliance, GBG, and Scan Group. Mr. Bahl will be speaking about the historical progression of the Indian e-commerce industry over the past decade. Please put your hands together to welcome Mr. Harish Bahl.
So it's morning. So first time in my life, sorry I was a little late to come here. First time in my life I heard, when I was about to land, the guy said, sorry we can't land, we have visibility problems landing into Mumbai. That's the first time for me. I've heard congestion landing into Mumbai many times, never heard visibility problems. So I don't know whether that's good news or bad news, but at least it means that little bit of cold here as well. And I think everyone is interested in the future, and the topic I got was to talk about history. I don't know how many people are interested in that. But so I think in the last, I've been in the internet space since 99, 2000, and one thing which particularly amazed me, and I think quite a lot of us who were in the industry since then, was that internet was synonym to online advertising. And I think that was one thing which kind of amazed most of the people, because in the traditional world, commerce drives advertising, not advertising driving commerce, right? So you first have a business and then you have an advertising to support the business. But for some reason on internet, it was all about advertising in the first few years, and then there was no real e-commerce happening. But then finally e-commerce happened. And I think the typical debate that everybody talked about at those times was, are there enough buyers? So whenever you would speak to anyone, there were some fringe players trying to do some e-commerce. Always the debate was, oh, there are not enough buyers, we need more buyers for it to make sense. And I think, at least my personal view, even at that time, was that it's not about we need more buyers, I think we need more sellers. Because I think a simple question that every consumer was asking is that, hey, you're saying e-commerce in India is not taking off. So how many things are there that I can buy on internet, right? So it was probably, I think, a wrong judgment by a lot of industry people to say that e-commerce in India is not ready, consumers are not ready. The fact of life was that there were no serious e-commerce players, and whenever someone made a serious attempt, I think they've been positively surprised by the demand that they've seen, right? So most companies I've seen, they may still be figuring out their path to profitability, but very few companies who are struggling with the challenge of demand, right? So the demand is there, the growth is there, the businesses are growing. I think the first wave of e-commerce, honestly, it would be wrong to say, it wasn't, okay, I won't say use the word wrong, but I would say it was a half-hearted attempt towards e-commerce, right? The traditional large internet companies that were there. I think that was, if I can use the word, their approach towards e-commerce was being a little bit pregnant, right? So, and fact of life is, you're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. There's nothing called as a little bit pregnant. So everybody was doing e-commerce, but nobody was holding stocks, nobody was focusing on fulfillment, and it was basically that you have a nice e-commerce catalog on the internet, you put some products, air conditioners, this, that, and then you say buy now. And the moment you do buy now, at the back end, it was not basically an e-commerce business, it was a lead generation engine, that the buy now would then be taken and then sent to the manufacturer and say, hey, I got these many leads for you, can you go service them? So I think it was a half-hearted thing. Some were just collecting leads, some were even collecting payments, but still not maintaining stock, still not having their own distribution infrastructure. And the companies who were giving them the offers to put on the internet were actually not ready for what it takes to do e-commerce, right? So they and to make things work, the volume of business that they were getting was not even 1% of their overall pie of business that they were doing. So the attention that it was getting was anyways I still remember I was at an LG office and there was some customer screaming there that I haven't got my microwave for I don't know 4 weeks, 3 weeks, and the product manager called up the local the local state guy who was responsible to ship it from that particular warehouse, and the answer that he got back was, I have 1,000 microwaves to ship to meet my monthly target today. Do you think I'm waking up and thinking about your one microwave that somebody ordered from the internet? Sorry, I'm not promoted. Let me first achieve my target for the month. So I think that's why I use the word, it was a half-hearted attempt. And a lot of people kind of flew the inference out of it that, oh, e-commerce in India is not taking off. But, fact of life was that e-commerce was not really being done in the proper way. And most of the focus that time, I remember, was e-commerce is for the NRIs, is for the diaspora audience, right? So everybody was saying, hey, e-commerce is gifting. Those people whose sons live in America, their parents are here, they want to gift a television, they want to gift sweets, they want to... So e-commerce was basically being seen as a medium to connect the families which are separated, and like one part of the family is our friends, which are one part is in UK and US, and the other part is in India. But no one was really trying to attack the true big potential that was the Indian consumer itself, right? So there was a lot of disbelief around that. I think the real belief in e-commerce came through travel, right? And if I was to pick that which were the two companies which changed the landscape, I would say IRCTC and Air Deccan, because Air Deccan launched, and the only way you could buy an air ticket was internet, right? So they did not have a physical travel agent, they didn't have anything, and then they came up with these crazy low airfares where there was a compelling reason for everybody to go buy, transact on internet. And I think that was one point when suddenly a lot of people did their first transaction on internet. They adopted internet because there was a huge aspiration to fly in an airline with good fares, etc. And the only way you could get it was go to internet and make a transaction. And of course IRCTC, because not because of I would say the problem of access or that being the only option, but I think the alternate option was so inconvenient that going to a railway center and then booking a ticket there was a cumbersome exercise, a painful exercise, and this came across as a very, very, I would say, better alternate. And of course then I would say the OTAs, the Make My Trip, Yatra, Travel Gurus, Creators of the World, they kind of followed on and played a huge role. And I think a lot of people made their first transaction on internet basically through a air ticket or a railway ticket. And I would say that's where the belief came that e-commerce in India is real. But I think still, even at that time, the belief was restricted to that e-commerce is real in this country, but e-commerce is real only for products and services which can be delivered electronically. And I don't think there were many people who believed that physical shipping of goods is actually a real possibility. And everyone used to say, hey, travel is okay, it's an easy buy, it's a commodity buy, all you need is price and availability. But to buy a physical product, it's a difficult thing, you can't do that. But I think Flipkart did a great job by starting there, and I think if you broadly segregate the whole goods e-commerce business into hard goods and soft lines. So for packaged box products, I would say Flipkart started with books, and then of course they've added electronics and other categories. But I think that was the first company which kind of approached the goods. This thing, I think they took good 2 or 3 years to sit down say the belief that soft lines, that apparel, that fashion could be bought online wasn't there. Because I remember three years, 4 months, 3.5 years back, when we started to start fashion in news, almost everybody told me that fashion is not going to sell online. Even if everybody was sitting in our store, no one's going to buy clothes online. It's not going to happen. And I don't know why, but me and Pearl, my partner in law, we just thought that why not, right? Like if you're giving something for half the price, and all the consumers, so all the industry people we spoke to, they said it won't work. But all the consumers that we spoke to, they said, wow, if you can do that, I'm going to buy. I said, maybe I think the customer is more right than the industry people. Let's give it a shot. And we were surprised, right? Like we got massive uptake, and I think in 6 months we saw like a flood of companies trying to attack the soft lines category, because for obvious reasons, like the box products typically come with lower gross margins. The path to profitability is more long drawn because you need more scale. With high gross margin categories, typically you have a better option, higher probability of becoming profitable faster. So and that kind of I would say at least created the full circle where we had products, we had services, we had hardcore, soft lines, everything. At least I would still say that there is still a lot of scope for lot, if I look at my share of wallet today and see how many things are available on internet to buy, I think there's a huge delta still. But I would say it still kind of filled the landscape, and it was more holistic, offering from a consumer perspective, that there were a lot of things that you could buy on internet. Then I think for almost a year or so, everybody, every conference, every trade meeting, everybody, there was belief that India is a value-driven market, and e-commerce in India. So like typically when they say, oh, you're doing an e-commerce business, what are the three, the three buckets in which they typically park that what problem are you going to solve? Is it value-driven offer, or is it an access problem you're solving, or is it a convenience thing that you're doing? And I think there was a very strong view that e-commerce in India is value. Basically means deals, right? So like as long as you can keep throwing deals in some shape or form, you would sell. And if as long and the moment you do not have deals, you're not going to do that. I think most of us who are in the e-commerce business learned this through our customers. I don't think many people had that insensibility, but when everybody looked at their customer data, their cohorts, and everything, they realized that yes, value was a key driver. Maybe value was a key driver to make the first transaction, to make someone believe in you, to make someone taste what your product is, what your service is. But the bigger fundamental problem that you were solving was access, and it's kind of getting proven by in so many different ways. It's unbelievable, right? So when you look at the share of your small towns versus big towns, and you suddenly realize that hey, there's so many orders coming from smaller towns where price is not the real reason why they're buying it. It's actually access, that you're not able, they don't have access to those products, and that's the main reason why they're doing that. And it's not just limited to small towns or big towns. So we launched a company called Culture, which is an online apparel brand. The shirt is Culture. We still don't make suits. So generally I don't wear suits. I'm only wearing Culture. They are not. And when we started that company, there was so much of emphasis on jeans. Like even if you see our product catalog, all our 80% of them have cool jeans, and like very nice models wearing jeans and all that. And the traditional thing. And then after 3 months, when we looked at what's selling most, jeans wasn't the largest selling product at all, right? Because there's already too much of jeans supply available in the market. But we had these cool jeggings and red pants and colored pants and things which were not available, or Henleys, right? Like it's such a basic product. I could have never imagined that. Why would somebody like today? You type Henleys and you'll see we're right on the top. Now we've kind of taken a position that we are a Henley superstore. So a business, of course, there was a split between small town and large town, but the point I'm trying to make here is that it is not only about tier 1 cities and tier 2 and tier free, but when you say access, there's an access problem even within the tier 1 cities, right? So there is, if you can identify which are the products which are not easily available, or there's not enough choice available, you would see a huge difference between your uptake of those categories versus stuff for which there's enough supply available in the market. That was at least the learning we got. And I think because these examples are more, I would say more smaller examples, but take 2 steps back, and if you really look at from a fundamental perspective, I think something which to me very similar to what happened in telecom is also happening in retail in India, right? So there was leapfrogging of one generation of development of telecom, that because there was a late mover advantage, right? So because we entered late, we kind of skipped one generation, and we had, like, from day one we had GSM, and we had slightly better mobile technology, and I think same is happening with retail, because traditional in India is still a single digit number, whereas in developed markets share of organized retail is very, very high. And for those who are also in the organized retail, not many have really figured it out how to build a distribution or a point of sale network for a country where demand is so fragmented, so split, and the unit economics for most of them are not working out. Whereas the e-retail seems to be the answer for a lot of these questions, right? So I think the typical route that development of retail took in developed markets, where organized retail became very big, and then there were like the catalog retailers, and then came the flash retailers, and then came the social commerce, and then came the mobile commerce. That was the typical development cycle that the traditional the developed market saw for the development of retail. In India, we're seeing the leapfrogging of that. I think development of e-retail is going to change in the shape and form of how the traditional retail would develop, because it's anyways very underdeveloped. And now with the growth rates that e-retail is seeing, where there's a high possibility that for a large part of India, we will skip one generation, and probably e-commerce would be the primary destination for shopping. And I think there has been the gap between catalog retailers, flash retailers, social commerce, etc. That the number of years that it took in developed markets for one format to be supported, followed by the other. Here, I think almost everything has converged literally at the same time, right? So that's again a very interesting development that at least we've been seeing. Social commerce, which seems to be the next big buzzword. There has been, I think globally, there's a lot of talk around social commerce, integrating media and commerce, and how do you engage your consumers. I think India has adopted that very well. Though my personal learnings are that it's kind of it's still a little different from a lot of other markets. So let's say most of the good e-commerce sites would say, hey, I have more than 1 million fans. You go to Germany or you go to US and you say, I have 1 million fans. That means you're doing crazy amount of business from those 1 million fans. I don't think that's true in India, right? So yes, there is a high virality quotient. Social commerce is taking off. It is the way forward. But at the same time, I think the direct correlation engaging with your products and brands on the online space, and those who are directly converting into customers, that ratio in India is probably different from what you see in a lot of other markets. And I don't know what's the lesson there. Maybe there's a huge percentage of customers who are using internet to look, to experience, but then final purchase decision is still being made at the physical point of retail, and gradually that number is going to improve, or it is just a cultural thing. It's a consumer behavior thing. I really don't know the answer for that, but at least I know that there is a difference between the behavior. But what drives that or what's coming forward, I think it's anybody's guess. I think post that we saw a lot of emergence of vertical commerce players, right? So like initially, I think everybody was trying to, like 2009, if you met anybody, what are you trying to do? I'm trying to build Amazon of India. So I think soon there was realization that there's life beyond building Amazon of India, and people started looking at different formats, so like I mentioned, whether it was Flash, catalog, marketplace, etc., etc. And then I think then the next step was vertical e-commerce. I don't know the answer on vertical e-commerce, to be very honest. Only thing that I can say is that there is an opportunity there, but at the same time, there's a challenge to do vertical commerce as of today in India for two reasons. One, I've seen a lot of companies pick up verticals which are on a standalone basis not a very big scalable market. So that becomes there becomes a ceiling to how big a business that can become. And second, I would say with so much of capital being deployed on customer acquisition, the cost of customer acquisition for a horizontal player versus a vertical player, I think the vertical players as of today stand a structural disadvantage there, because the number of, this may not be true for every category, but for a lot of categories we're seeing this problem that the number of repeats that you're getting from the same customer that you acquire in a vertical commerce business is relatively lesser than what you're getting from a horizontal play or someone who's in a multi-category play. So I think that's still something which is a word of caution, and I think most of the vertical commerce players are kind of figuring out the answer to that. I personally believe that the answer lies not in marketing. I think the answer lies, or not in paid marketing, sorry. The answer lies more in social marketing and building a product differentiation, building a differentiated supply, which would basically include your share of direct visitors versus paid visitors, and build a stronger bond. I think of late the buzzword seems to be marketplace. I don't know what drives that. Is it the FDI regulations that drive marketplace? Because if you're a marketplace business, then it's a more investor-friendly, acquirer-friendly structure versus if you are a non-marketplace business. I think whether it is that, or it is that a lot of big companies globally are actually marketplace businesses, right? So if you look at Rakuten, Taobao, even Amazon Marketplace, they're all marketplaces. So I think it's kind of both. But last 1 year, marketplace seems to be the buzzword. Almost everybody now, in some shape or form, is able to justify and define his business as a marketplace business. Assisted marketplace, managed marketplace, but there is a marketplace component in everybody's business now. Still, I would say, there is a lot of, mobile has been an interesting, so a lot of scope to be done through mobile. There's been a very interesting development that we've seen, right? At least 3 years back when we started our business, not even 1%, like not even 0.5% of our transactions would come from mobile. Nobody was even thinking of making mobile-friendly sites. But for most of the guys who've given a little bit of attention to mobile, plus or minus 5% is the share of mobile that I'm seeing for at least some of our companies. And I think that's generally the pattern for a lot of other companies as well. Of course, there are different formats which are more mobile friendly. There are different kind of businesses which are more mobile friendly. Like, typically we've seen flash sale businesses have a higher share of mobile transactions as against catalog businesses, but that's a pretty obvious commonsensical thing, because in flash there is urgency to buy, and if you don't buy it now, you may miss the product because someone else may buy it, and it's a limited time period sale. So you kind of there's a buying pressure and you're on the go, so the chances that you would make a transaction through your mobile are higher as against a catalog retailer where that I can go home at my ease and make a transaction. But I think mobile is like the next thing which really everyone needs to focus on. That's still an opportunity. I would say even if someone has kind of lost the lead on internet, he can at least conquer the mobile side of it, and that's a very obvious opportunity still. Still a lot of way to go. I would say a lot of investment required in infrastructure, payment side, and I think most importantly building trust, because I think we need something now which would get the next big share of the customers, right? Because a lot of companies are advertising continues to the same set of advertisers, and I think that we have to identify business models, we have to identify ways which will get the new set of consumers who are not on internet. We started a business called Juvalia, which is a multi-level marketing fashion jewelry business. It's with an internet component to it. I can't have it on my phone, I can't show you the picture, but if I show you the picture of the customers that business is growing at a very crazy pace, and like it surprised us on all metrics. And we were just thinking that what have we done right in this one, and the only thing that I could identify was that that business is addressing the next set of consumers who are not today on internet, right? So their appreciation of what internet or digital brings to their life, or helps them do business, is a totally different perspective than what I would say people like you and me, who are spoiled internet consumers today, who are coupon shoppers, more coupon shoppers now rather than this thing. So I have to buy a shoe, let me go and find who's giving the coupon today. Is it Jabong or Yebi or Be Stylish or Myntra? And whoever is giving a better coupon, let me buy that, right? So there's no loyalty. So I think getting that next set of customers is where I think a lot of companies are focusing, and building trust will be very important. And I think the fact that most of the large players have adopted television as a medium kind of backs what I'm trying to say, because television has proven to be the best medium for building consumer trust, at least in this market. I think good news is that big retailers, big brands who till now e-commerce was too small for their attention have now started taking it seriously. I don't think most of the guys are still doing a decent job or making the right kind of investments into it, but for sure there's a lot of boardroom talk happening, which is the first step. So I would expect that next year we would see a lot more happening from the traditional guys. And I think that's about it. And I think one big learning that at least we got was, so there was a lot of talk that, you need to ship in 24 hours, you need to give free shipping, you need to do this. And that's the only time your business will succeed. At least, to conclude, I would say the big learning that we've got is that it's not, the consumer's ask is very simple. He's not asking anything specific. I think his ask is live up to your promise, whatever it is, right? So I think that's where the companies who are focusing it are getting it right. Whatever your promise is, if your promise is I'll ship in 10 days and I will charge you $10 for shipping, at least say that, and there is no surprises. Live up to your promise, and most likely your business will do well. Thank you.